What's going on, y'all? So Live Nation is taking 20% of artist guarantees. And they put out this memo that got leaked, and there's so many other things that people are all upset about. Those greedy jerks, right? Well, let's break down the economics and let's look at some numbers in this video. I'm starting a new series of where we're looking at show settlements, and we're really breaking down settlements and how shows work, how deals work, and all that, right? I already have a settlement series that I started, how to settle deals and the 5 most common types of deals you'll see. So I have a link to that right below here in the notes. Check that out if you want to learn all about the most popular types of deals that promoters use and agents and their teams make with promoters, right? So take a look at that. If you are the artist managers out there, or the artists, promoters, and especially tour managers, tour accountants, or if you're aspiring to be in one of those positions, if there's a deal that you want broken down in this series, or a deal you need to look at, leave a comment below. I'll reach out to you, or shoot me an email. I'll have the contact info below here as well. Would love to look at some deals and break these things down for you guys, so we can really look at the economics, right? How do these deals actually work, and how much money are people actually making?
Live the life you love.
All right, so Live Nation is taking 20% of artists' pay, right? And the memo that leaked also talked about deposits and merch and insurances, force majeures, and all this other junk, right? So for starters, 20%, we're going to look at that in the settlement we're going to about to get into and see what the economics of that actually look like. Then also things that people are all upset about is the deposits. They only want to pay a 10% deposit instead of a 50% deposit, which most promoters pay, right? So let's break that down. Most major promoters or established promoters, they've always only paid a 10% deposit. They've never paid 50%. And the benefit for the artist to that is most agencies will take a 10% commission off the guarantees they get, right? So 10% goes to the agency. They can keep that, do what they want with it. If you're sending 50% to the agency, now the artist actually has to wait for the agency to settle that show out, whatever that process is, right? So if your show is in July, and it's beginning July, they may not pay you for that in sometime in August when they have reconciled all their numbers. So paying 10% to the agencies is actually not a bad thing. That's actually good for the artist, as long as they're working with trusted promoters, right? Because then the artist takes home all the money that they're supposed to get, and they don't have to chase agents or anybody else down for their money. Let's take a quick look at the merch part. Merch, they're talking about taking 30%. People are upset about that as well. So it's typically industry standard where venues and promoters are taking anywhere from 10 to 30% of what you sell on merch at the show, right? Now, what some will do, what agents will negotiate, is that it's a certain percentage off of soft goods. So anything that's not recorded or technically copywritten, right? Like music, sheet music, books, DVDs, those types of things will be hard goods. And then your t-shirts, your caps, your pins, your patches, posters, whatever else you're selling, those are all soft goods. So usually a higher percentage will be taken from soft goods. So 10 to 30% will be taken from soft goods, and then anywhere from 0 to 20% will be taken from hard goods, recorded stuff. Now, not to try and defend Live Nation, but Live Nation actually has a policy where they don't take a cut from recorded goods. They let the artist keep 100% of that, whereas some other promoters and venues will take a cut from recorded goods. And the reason they thought it wasn't fair to take a cut from recorded goods, if you're on a major label deal, you may not even make 10% off an album sale. So if a promoter is coming in and taking 10% or more, what's the point of even selling your records at shows, right? Besides, like, you're basically paying to sell your record. If you're someone who buys your album and the promoter takes 20%, you're not just giving the promoter a commission, now you're paying basically the label to sell your album at shows. So never, ever, for artists out there, have promoters take a cut from your CDs and your hard goods, CDs, books, DVDs, all that kind of stuff. Now, there's some other language in the memo about force majeure, insurances, right? And listen, promoters and venues, especially in these times, they have the right to protect themselves however they want. Is it fucked up? That's debatable, right? Is it messed up for them to require insurance, for them to not pay things like transportation for a festival. Now, for a festival, they should pay transportation. For a touring routed show, promoter has never paid transportation. So again, another thing that's getting bashed, that's not really accurate. And I always say, they can make all the rules they want and have all the things in their contracts that they want. And that's their right to do that. But you also don't have to sign it, and you don't have to deal with those promoters. I always say there's, it's a catch-22. When artists get screwed by their labels, is it really the label screwing the artist, or the artists kind of screw themselves by not understanding the contract, not talking to an attorney, and not defending the big companies and the labels here? They definitely will try to take advantage of artists, and especially if you don't go consult with an attorney or just sign the contract because you're happy to work with these people, right? Always consult with an attorney. Always read the contract. If there's something you don't understand, the rule if I don't understand something on a contract, I cross it out and not going in the contract. You can come back to me, explain to me, or put it in simpler words what it means. But my default is I just cross it out if I can't afford to go on an attorney. The argument also real quick that people will make about playing for, not playing for Live Nation. Live Nation is a monopoly. You can't avoid playing for Live Nation, right? That's another thing I've seen a lot of people complain about. And the truth of the matter is, if you're an artist that's independent and probably not on a major agency or a major label, and you're playing 500 cap rooms and below, you're probably already not working with Live Nation to begin with, right? Because they don't typically work with those types of artists unless they have a local venue and they're trying to book local shows. But on a touring scale, they're not working with those artists anyway. So the artists are already playing independent venues and supporting themselves by playing shows independently. Also, on a bigger scale, there's also AEG. And artists like Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, Rolling Stones, those are AEG artists. Metallica used to be an AEG artist. Bon Jovi used to be an AEG artist. They chose to go to Live Nation. It wasn't because Live Nation was the only option, as they chose to go there, right? And how many venues does Live Nation really have? Okay, so they monopolize the music industry. Live Nation has approximately 100 venues that they own and operate. And most of the arenas and amphitheaters and stadiums they're in, they don't own and operate those. They're just basically renting those venues. Any promoter can go in most arenas and rent those venues out. Now, catch-22 is AEG owns about 40 venues. And then last year in 2019, they merged with SMG, which then formed ASM. And SMG is a venue and facilities management company, and they manage 240 venues. So now Live Nation is actually going into arena, and these venues are arenas and big venues. So now Live Nation is actually going into arenas that are managed by AEG staff. So just to get some things clear, right? So we don't get misguided by all the bad information out there. And last quick thing before we go into the settlement, artists do not have to work with promoters also. Joe Bonamassa, extremely successful, has made millions of dollars. He does what's called four-walling, and that's when you go into the venue, you rent the venue, you do all your own marketing, you control all the spending, you do all your own catering, and you control literally every single dollar. And I guarantee you artists that four-wall and rent venues actually make way more money than the ones that go through promoters and try to get guarantees. So if you're really confident in your business and you really want to make and maximize as much money as you can from playing shows, you should be going out four-walling venues and renting venues anyway. And I'd love to see if that is something we're going to see more of in the future after COVID-19 is over, because there's a major benefit for artists doing that. Now, let's take a look at a deal. Okay, so here's a deal from an actual show I've done. Can't name the artist, can't name the venue, the city, and all that, not going into any of that. We're just gonna look at some numbers, and the numbers are fairly similar. Some change it around, right? So the terms of this deal is the artist receives $100,000 versus 90% of the net after state sales tax, show expenses, and fees, right? And here's basically a breakdown of the fees they've agreed to, or the expenses they've agreed to. So these are what's called your budgeted expenses for the show. Now let's take a look at an artist settlement. Again, some of this might be quadratic formulas for you guys, but the more settlements you look at and the more you practice these things, the easier it's going to be to understand and really break down the math. So I really want to encourage you guys to look at the settlement series and look at the future videos that are coming out so you can really understand how settlements work, right? So here, event episode number 1 for the settlement series. Today's date, And basically you just have who the show rep is, who's settling the show on behalf of the promoter or venue, tour manager, who is settling the show on behalf of the artist, and buyer is who booked the show. That's how I build my settlement sheet. Not every settlement sheet looks the same. They actually all look different, right? Every promoter uses a different sheet. Right here at the top is a breakdown of the ticket sales. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on going through every number, just to not make a super long video, right? But again, it's going to be a weekly series. The more videos you look at, the more we're going to break things down. If you guys leave questions in the comments, I'll answer those questions and so on. So basically, this show sold 4,765 tickets. The gross is a little over 221,000, right? So remember, the guarantee is 100,000, right? Here is a breakdown of the budget expenses, exact same as on the deal. Now, if you were doing this in real life and you're settling the show, always check that the budgeted and actuals match what was actually on the contract from the agency, right? But here's just a breakdown. Some expenses are going to come in under, some over. You say, why is marketing $4,000 less than what was budgeted? Does a show that pretty much got close to selling out really fast, right? And then at the end of the day, when all tickets were released, and we can get into more of that stuff in future videos, but there's only 52 tickets left that didn't sell. Anyway, there's a $3 facility fee, which is something that was agreed to in the deal. 6.5% state sales tax. That's everybody has to pay that, right? So if you break this down, there's $194,000 left after facility fee and sales tax, and that needs to cover the expenses. And the expenses actually, so budget is 116,000 and change. They came out to 109,000 and change, right? So you subtract the show expenses from the net. There's $85,000 left. Now the artist is going to get $100,000 guaranteed, going to the artist no matter what, or 90% of the net, whichever is greater. So here you see 90% of 85,000 is, of course, less because it's less than the guarantee. And then here on the bottom, you see the promoter lost $14,686 on this show, a show that almost sold out, and the promoter is selling out what they call on paper. They sold out on paper. Next week, we're going to look at some ancillary revenue and other revenue that promoters can bring in that isn't just from ticket sales. But quickly looking at the 20% reduction, right? So let's say you take this $100,000 guarantee and take it down 20%. This is actually what that would mean in terms of this show, right? So the artist would $80,000. Now the promoter actually makes $5,000 on this show. Now, this is all happening because of COVID-19, right? So let's just say the capacities get cut in half. So I'm going to go in here just quickly, do some quick rounded math. Let's call this 400. So we sold 400 tickets here. I'm just going to zero out the comps just for easy math and not have any confusion here. So here we sold 500 tickets, about half of that is about 750, maybe call it 650. Here we're selling 415, and here we're selling 440 for easy math. You want to call it 550 or 450. So 450, right? So now here's what this means. Previously, on an almost sold out show, the promoter had lost was about $15,000, right? So now cutting the capacity in half, now the promoter is looking at losing $86,000 because they're only selling half the capacity, right? So that's kind of why all these rules and things are happening within, and it's not just Live Nation doing these things. It's happening with all the other big promoters. It's happening with all the venues. Again, they have the right to protect themselves and run their numbers and figure out what it takes to protect themselves, right? So remember, at the end of the day, it's up to the agents, the managers, and the artists to figure out, are you going to work with a promoter or not? It's their decision. You don't have to work with the majors. Live Nation may or may not be a monopoly. It operates like a monopoly, right? But again, there's other options out there, and they do not own most of the arenas, stadiums, amphitheaters, and major facilities. They have exclusivity on some, but there's always other options. And you always need to run the numbers, break the math down, and just see what it looks like. And then you can decide, is this someone I want to work with, or do you want to take the risk and go four-wall a show? And we'll look at what that looks like in a future video as well. So again, all the artists out there, managers, promoters, aspiring tour managers, especially tour managers and tour accountants, if you want to take a look at some deals, send me a note. I got a link to my contact below here. Leave a comment. I'll get in touch with you. Thank y'all so much for watching, and please subscribe to the channel, right? I was supposed to say that. I haven't even said that yet. Subscribe to the channel. Until next time, and as I always say in the podcast, spread love, positivity, and kindness in the world. And someday, goes he shows, meet people, make stuff. Peace, my friends.